Do you want to get hired as a data analyst and have no experience, no degree, and don't know anybody in the industry? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that here in a minute. And this is coming from someone that started with, like I said, no experience. I don't have a college degree, and I knew nobody in the tech industry when I joined. So I started from nothing, and you can get in the industry as well. Back in that time, I was doing Uber, and then my first job that I got working in data, I was making $25 an hour. So the first part of this is essentially to not necessarily lower your expectations, but lower your expectations. It's your first job. You don't have experience. Do not expect to get into FANG. Do not expect to have a full remote job making six figures as your first entry level job in data. It's not going to work like that. The first job that you want to get is basically essentially anybody that hires you. And that probably means that you want less competition. So that means you're gonna want to work with a company in person because there's less competition for that. There's more competition for a remote job, obviously, because there's people all across the country, essentially, or the globe that can apply for that job when there's only a smaller selection of people that can work at a job in a localized area. And so what I did when I got my first job in data was that I was essentially applying for jobs in my state, and I was applying to so many jobs and I was doing it so much. I did about, I think, 400 applications before I got hired. I essentially accidentally applied to jobs in different states. I applied to jobs in like Rhode Island, I think, and Wisconsin, and I ended up getting a job in Wisconsin. And so at the time I was living in Texas, and so what I did was I moved all the way from Texas to Wisconsin to work at this job. And so that might not be possible for you. However, if it is possible, you got to take, anything that you can get, you got to take when you have no experience, when you don't know anybody, when you're just going off of basically a blank resume of practice projects, you have to take what you can get. And but the best part is once you get that first job, this is the most important thing about it is that it starts a timer, and this timer is a timer of experience. So the faster you can get that first job, essentially the faster you can move up to, a job that you really want or a job that pays really well or potentially a full remote position. And the thing is that the first job essentially is just take whatever you can get and then work towards what you really want after that. Obviously, everybody knows about job hopping, I think it's called. So, yeah, I mean, implement that, of course, without a doubt. And so, coming in with no experience means that you essentially have to build your skills. And so the first thing about building your skills is what skills do you even need? Well, you can look at other YouTube videos, you can listen to what I have to say, but I think that the best way to do it is actually not to listen to anybody and do your own research on it. And so what I did coming into this industry with absolutely no knowledge of the tech industry at all. I didn't know any of the platforms, didn't know any of the technologies, didn't know what they were, didn't know what was popular with businesses, like what businesses needed. And I didn't want to just do what a YouTuber was saying, right? So what I did was I went on Indeed, I looked up jobs, I looked at what I searched keywords on jobs that I wanted, for example, data analyst, for example, data engineer. And then I essentially copy pasted the job descriptions of those jobs where it had the required skills. And so I went through that and I probably did 20, 30, 40 different jobs. And I basically copy pasted the entire description box, took out all the junk, and then I saved all of the essentially skills or all of the tools that were there. And then I basically just deleted all the ones that were like one time. And then basically I saw the ones that were most common. And so the ones that were most common, I put into a list. And then I was like, okay, this is the list of the most common skills that I'm going to need to do the work that I want to do. Now, of course, obviously, I can just give you that answer right now. That answer is going to be, unfortunately, Excel. It's not Python, it's Excel. The answer is Excel, and here's why. You're not a Python developer. You are an entry-level data person. And what that means is that you're going to essentially probably be doing basic analysis, and basic analysis, it's in Excel. All the business people, they use Excel. They look at numbers in Excel. They clean data sets in Excel. It's the most accessible way for business people to do that, obviously, other than Google Sheets. But the problem with Google Sheets is that putting that on a resume is great, but it's not the keyword that you need. If we're talking about keyword optimization for resumes, for recruiters, non-technical recruiters, right? These are just people that maybe they know a little bit about it, right? But they're not working in data, they're not working in IT. They don't know what these skills necessarily are. So if you start putting Google Sheets on your resume, that's not the keyword they're looking for. I don't know what they think about it, but potentially they could think it's a completely different thing, especially if a company has a Microsoft stack, meaning that all of their company infrastructure is on Microsoft and they see Google Sheets, it's completely irrelevant. It's not relevant really at all. Um, so this is why I say Excel. You can have Google Sheets on there, but you need to also have Excel. Definitely not just Google Sheets. You need to have Excel, and that's going to be the number one skill to get you hired because my first job was essentially a sort of data cleansing, data validation job. And so what I was doing was taking one Excel file, taking another Excel file, comparing the data. I think I was, deduplicating things. I was comparing or whatever it was. It's hard to remember off the top of my head, but basically taking data, putting it into a third Excel file, checking for duplicates, and then sending off the clean version to another team. That's what I was doing. Very basic data analysis, but it was required for the job. I think basically it took me usually like 1 hour per day to complete everything if I did it manually. And then, of course, within Excel, there's also automation tools. So I could have made a VBA macro to do it, in a minute or something, or a couple minutes. Um, so you can, one, get this job to, of course, start the timer of the actual amount of time you have experience in IT, in data. Two, if you get a sort of entry level job like this, you can do two things at once. You can do your job like I did. It took me 1 hour, typically, maybe 2 hours on difficult, like a lot of workload days. It literally took me at most 4 hours. So that leaves another 4 hours of me to study. And so that's the other point is that while you're working at these easier jobs, if you have downtime, you can study. So I was, deep into it. I was watching YouTube videos on, I think, C sharp. I was watching YouTube videos on SQL. I was watching YouTube videos about mathematics. I'm not saying to study that. I'm just saying that back then I didn't know what to study. I was just studying as much as I could while I was at the job, so I wasn't wasting any time. And that's what I would recommend for you. Because from there, I was able to move up into better data roles at that point. I had the experience at the first job and the knowledge that I was building while I was working that job. And so that's why, unfortunately, it's not sexy like Python is really cool. It's Excel. It's boring, it's lame, um, but it will get you hired if you have great Excel skills. If you have, and I recommend as well to have practice projects. If you have 3 practice projects for Excel that are embedded within your resume, something like a report, and then, a report, something with charts, something with a table, something like that, then they're going to know maybe a pivot table. Then they're going to know that you know how to use Excel. And it's going to be the most valuable tool because every data role is essentially going to be using Excel. They're going to be using CSV files. Even at the big data level, they're going to be using CSV files. So you definitely need to know how they work and how to manipulate data and how to present data to people that aren't data professionals. And so it's a great stepping stone as well on your journey starting out because it's going to be foundational thing that you're basically going to use for the rest of your career. There may be some caveats to that. There may be some niches or very highly advanced technical roles or management positions where potentially you're not using Excel at all. Maybe some kind of Python development role or some other development role you're not using Excel at all. But honestly, even like SQL related roles and most Python related roles, you're going to be working with CSV files, which is essentially an Excel file. Um, an Excel file is anyway, you get the point. So the best skill to learn, hate to say it, Excel. So skip everything else. Again, you don't have to take my advice. I would again recommend using keywords to search on Indeed to find the jobs that you want. Copy all those keywords, find the most common, the most popular ones for the job that you're going to be applying to and learn those skills. But if you just want to simply take my advice, Excel. And You can learn it really fast too. You can learn Excel in about 1 month. You can have practice projects ready about 1 month. So you can start applying for jobs at the 1 month mark. While you're applying for jobs, you can be working your current job, obviously, but you can be studying and upskilling the other things that are important, such as SQL, such as Python. And so it's not like a this or that. You can do both at the same time. But I would say that there's no point in really starting to apply for really anything until you have at least like Excel for an entry level data role, of course. And obviously, you can find practice projects. You can find YouTube tutorials all on YouTube. I would just search something like practice project Excel, full tutorial Excel, full project Excel, something like that. You can change Excel for anything else that you want to learn. And there, it's all there. That's how I learned. I learned on YouTube. Um, I think when I started initially studying Python, I I went off YouTube, but for everything else, I was on YouTube 100%, and it's really the best thing. I'm not against buying something like a Udemy course for like $10. I'm not against going on a random website that's like $10, $15 per month. I think that's amazing as well. But as far as like a boot camp, no, no, definitely not. So after you learn the skills, then you have to build the resume. There's plenty of videos on how to build a resume, but the main thing is that we live in an AI digital world nowadays. And so you need to make sure that your resume is not necessarily human readable, but machine readable. So you need to follow guidelines on resumes to make sure that the automated systems are picking it up, showing it to real people instead of putting it in the trash because maybe you have keyword spam in your resume. And so you need to look up the best practices of whatever the time is now. Maybe it's 2024, maybe it's 2025. Maybe I'm dating myself with this video, but look up the current practices of the modern day, how to build the resume. Build it so the machines can read it, build it so the AI can read it. Um, then additionally attach your like repertoire of practice projects, which will essentially be Excel report, Excel pivot table, and then another Excel report or something like that showing like maybe a big formula bar. So like three pictures and then three for each technology, three for each skill. So if you want three Excel things, three SQL projects, three Python projects, that's great. Um, but three Excel projects and then your resume and then just start applying. When I was initially applying, it was before the AI stuff. So to be honest with you, I just was skipping the cover letter completely. I was just clicking through Indeed as fast as I possibly could and was not even doing any cover letters at all. Now, now that there's AI, it makes cover letters so much easier. So obviously you can just copy paste the description, put it into ChatGPT, and then copy paste the cover letter into the cover letter section to make it, personalized. Yeah, I mean, just do that. Why not? It takes like 5, 10, 15 seconds. Um, you know, it, either do that or don't put a cover letter at all. Don't write a cover letter. Don't spend 15 minutes thinking about a cover letter. It's not worth your time because you need to be doing so many applications and you don't want to waste any of your time. It should basically be 1 hour of applying for jobs literally every single morning, every single day. And you don't have if you're going to apply for 20 jobs or whatever is new on Indeed that day, you don't want to spend 20 times 15 or 20 times 10. It's like 200 minutes. So like that's like 3 hours. That's way too much time thinking about cover letters. So either don't write a cover letter or use AI to write a cover letter. Maybe if there's like one specific job that you're really excited about, then you can write probably like a partially you, partially AI cover letter. You can always maybe change a few words, but again, honestly, cover letter doesn't really matter. Just click through it. The most important thing is volume. So you need to be sending out as many applications as possible. The reason being is because your resume is not competitive. So you need a employer that's willing to essentially take a risk or take a bet on you. And, if they're going to be willing to do that, then they're going to be looking at the applications, right? So yeah. Um, and again, it helps if you apply like in a wider location range than just your town. I don't think that's a good idea at all. I would highly recommend being open to moving. Highly recommend that, highly flexible, or like a long commute. I think that even a long commute would be very worth it because you're starting a new, very promising career. Um, and so you really have to be flexible with the location of the job that you're applying for. You also essentially have to be flexible on the job title. Like maybe it's not specifically data analyst. That's okay. It doesn't matter. It matters that you're using the tools every single day, or at least, in your job description, you're supposedly using the tools every single day. If that makes sense, maybe you're studying all day because there's nothing to do. But if you're getting paid to work in Excel, essentially, forget the title, that's perfect. Then from there, you can move on to essentially wherever you want to go. If you want to go from a data analyst to a senior data analyst, if you want to go from a data analyst to a business intelligence developer, if you want to go from a data analyst to a essentially like a data engineer or a pipeline or a robot process automation developer or a data scientist, whatever it is, you can go from anywhere with Excel. Maybe it's not the most fastest possible way to get to like machine learning engineer, right? Because you could probably become a machine learning engineer if you had a degree and you interned somewhere and you knew somebody. So it's probably not the fastest way to do that. But you're not slowing yourself down by getting a job working in Excel. You're not slowing yourself down at all. The only thing you're doing is learning how data essentially works. You're going to be making a lot of mistakes. Um, I definitely learned that is that you really need to check your work really, really well. So something to keep in mind. And this is how to actually get hired as a data analyst. So thanks for watching. Subscribe, hit the like button. Um, Post a question in the comments. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Post that in the comments.